Welcome to all of you here in this beautiful auditorium in what used to be a Jewish temple, as well as those of you who are watching us remotely. To Ai Weiwei, I know you're in high demand wherever you go, but it's still remarkable that this event sold out in exactly 2 minutes. Today, we have around 2,000 people on site with us here and off site watching remotely. Very exciting. I'm Carmen Colangelo, the Ralph J. Nagel Dean of the Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts at Washington University in St. Louis. And it's my pleasure, in fact, it's such an honor, to welcome you to this evening's event, the Bunny and Charles Burson Visiting Artist Lecture. This will be a conversation with Sabine Eckmann, the William T. Kemper Director and Chief Curator of the Mildred Kemper Art Museum, and of course, Ai Weiwei, who is one of the most important contemporary artists and political activists working today. Sabine Eckmann is the curator of the exhibition, Ai Weiwei, Bare Life, that will open to the public at the Kemper Art Museum on Saturday. She is a senior scholar, a specialist in 20th and 21st century art. She has authored award-winning publications and curated numerous exhibitions exploring the intersections of art and politics, historical and contemporary exile, trauma, and medium aesthetics. She is the recipient of the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation Award for Curatorial Innovation, the College of Art Association's Alfred H. Barr Jr. Award for Outstanding Museum Scholarship, and the Association of Art Museums Curators Award for Excellence. Although Ai Weiwei needs no introduction, a brief summary of his background, I believe, will be pertinent to this evening's conversation, even though briefly summarizing a life and career as storied as his is not an easy thing to do. He was born in China in 1957. Almost immediately, he and his family were exiled from Beijing to remote provinces from 1958 to 1976. At the end of the Cultural Revolution in the 1980s and early 1990s, he came to the United States to study art, primarily in New York City, and in 1993, he returned to Beijing, where he worked as an artist, architect, activist, and supporter of younger artists. Although in 2008 he received the Chinese Contemporary Art Award for Lifetime Achievement, his concern with human rights abuses and his outspoken criticism of the Chinese government was met with oppressive resistance. He has endured censorship, surveillance, restricted rights, police detention, physical abuse, and imprisonment. Outside of China, however, his work in defense of human dignity and his integration of political activism and art have earned him recognition around the world. He has been awarded the Bianca Jagger Human Rights Foundation Award for Courage, the Václav Havel Prize for Creative Dissent from the Human Rights Foundation, and the Ambassador of Conscience Award from the Amnesty International. In 2015, his passport was returned to him, and he was allowed to leave the country, and he has lived in exile ever since. We are extremely grateful to Ai Weiwei for joining us tonight and for the opening of the exhibition. Before I turn this over to Sabine and Ai Weiwei, I want to take just a minute to put this evening's event in context. As you know, the Kemper Art Museum is reopening in 2 days after almost 2 years of renovation and construction. Its debut, Ai Weiwei, Bare Life, is a selection of Ai Weiwei's work over the last 2 decades. Of note is that it is a thematic exhibition organized around 2 very important issues that affect all of us. And that Ai Weiwei has worked directly and unflinchingly to make visible the international humanitarian crisis of 70 million people displaced across the globe and the destruction of the past by the political, economic, and environmental developments of the present. These themes in Ai Weiwei's artworks provoke central questions. What does it mean to be human in relationship to the past, and how has it shaped us, and in relationship to the future, how we might shape it? A simple way of putting this, Ai Weiwei's work invites us to think about what matters in the world today. It is no coincidence that this conversation is being presented as a key part of the Sam Fox School's public lecture series, the annual Bunny and Charles Burson Visiting Artist Talk. Bunny and Charles, both artists and political activists, are deeply convinced about the interconnected importance of politics and art. In Bunny's own words, it is the charge of artists to confront power, voice political opinions, and condemn warfare. Past Burson lectures include Alfredo Yar, Carrie Mae Weems, Trevor Paglin, and Diana Al-Hadid, all who have stimulated through their work vital conversations about the role of architecture and design and art in addressing social justice, environmental issues, and democratic freedoms. I'm truly grateful to Bunny and Charles for their significant support for making tonight possible. To conclude, I want to say it is my personal hope that Ai Weiwei's dedication to humanitarian issues and his articulation of human rights violators worldwide will also spark discussion and change in relationship to St. Louis, a still deeply segregated city where bare life rather than good life is part of the daily experience of many. And with that, I turn this over to Sabine and the one you all came here to hear, Ai Weiwei.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Ai Weiwei, welcome to St. Louis, to Washington University, to the Sam Fox School, and the Kemper Art Museum. Really, I would like to thank you so very much for your commitment to do the exhibition Ai Weiwei, Bare Life, and to even come here today to share your thoughts about art, life, and politics with us. We all, and especially me, feel deeply honored by that. And thank you all for coming and joining us today. Before we delve into the conversation, I just want to make one very short announcement. Due to the very large audience here and in the remote viewing sites, we collected questions in advance and selected a few that I will read at the very end of the Q&A. And with that, we can get started. Your work as artist, filmmaker, thinker, architect, and politically engaged person mixes art and activism to the degree that one doesn't exist without the other. This is, for example, very evident in Bombs, the new work in our exhibition. Is this the first time that you're visualizing technological warfare, and what was the motivation for that?
Well, this is unthinkable. I'm sitting here with you, and I passed this city about 30 years ago when I was a student, 1982. We driving by to see the arch, the huge arch. I didn't get up because I'm a little bit afraid of the height. And, but this is so nice. I have a chance to come here to meet you and to present my works here. Yesterday I went to see the work, and I'm deeply impressed. A university in this heartland of the United States can hold up such a high quality facility, and the show looks perfect. very impressive. So I should thank the university can really put art as a center on the center stage for education and for communicating with the people. And this work relate to a set of bombs from the first bombs being designed till the last one. So when I do works, very often it requires a lot of study and research. And since 2015, we have been facing this doing research and documentary films on the refugee situation. And then the curiosity come to me is how those refugees become refugees. And then the question goes, who are those, who caused them to leave their home? And, for what reason? Over 70,000 people have to lose their home every a few seconds that somebody just lost their home. And of course, we talk about this very peaceful town here, a little bit surreal, but that's the fact. So this idea come out how we can understand our history by focus on some simple facts, like what human ever designed or produced technically about the bombs, which is about the killing, and it's about for whatever the reason, it's about the killing and killing lives. So we did long time research with specialists or government agencies to do a very deep research on bombs. It's not so easy because it's many nations that makes it. I think most bombs are made by United States, and Russians, and also Germany. And if you see the show, you will see how the bombs are designed and who designed it. But also we have a clear study about the technical part of those bombs. So it takes 2 years to present one image like this, because this is not a simple drawing, it's a 3D model. Actually, we can print those bombs as life size, just like the real ones. It includes the bombs World War II, U.S. dropped in Japan, the Fat Boy, and these 2 nuclear bombs.
Well, thank you. I want to sort of connect to this and go almost a little deeper into your work. Much of your work in our exhibition and beyond addresses human rights violations, from the victims of the 2008 Sichuan earthquake to the more than 70 million refugees currently seeking a new place to stay, to very recently the pro-democracy demonstrations happening in Hong Kong right now. These are all very, very tough and complicated subjects. Can you share just some thoughts about our current global condition?
Well, as a contemporary artist, so I think what is so contemporary about it is I have same kind of worries or happiness as average man or average contemporary people. So I'm first a human being. I have to always tell myself, and I care about what's happening in today's world, in the news. If I see a boat flipped, about 700 people lost their life in the ocean, those kind of news will stay with me, and I draw me to the seashore to see how they approach, who are they, why they have to risk their life. So curiosity, and also to kind of responsibility to share the humanity, to think that humanity are as one. If somebody get hurt, we all get hurt somehow. So that kind of drive maybe because come from my early time when my father was exiled. We are in very remote area. I grew up there, and then, we are living in the world full of this kind of tragic events, and the news. If you look at the news, it's always too many. You cannot really absorb what is happening. You just let it go. And but of course, as an artist, I have to grab some, to use that, and almost to live through that, to understand human condition and our feelings. What happened in Hong Kong also, if you just look at the image at the beginning, I think it's very dramatic. If you have a city, 1 million or 2 million people peacefully walk on the street, and the average, the age is just over 20 years old, and they're very rational, very well educated. Their demonstration not because job or housing, but because they are afraid to lose their freedom. So that kind of demonstration not lasting just for 1 day, but now it's over 100 days. And so that those things catch my imagination to see, what kind of future, we would have. We all have children, and we all care about how the world is going to be. So that maybe is the motivation. I get deeply involved in those issues. We have teams shooting documentary films in Hong Kong, and it's over months they are still shooting. It's quite dangerous. It's getting more dramatic, but still you want to be involved because you want to identify with certain values. And how can you say you identify with certain values but not to be involved? I think that's not honest.
Well, thank you. You touched a little bit upon sort of what I wanted to ask you next, because I do think it's really important for our audience to maybe understand your own biography a little better, because it is very much shaped by the experience of exile from the very beginning, and you have experienced what it means to being dispossessed of human rights, as a political prisoner, as a surveyed citizen. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the link between your own life experiences and your projects, in particular, maybe in relation to the worldwide refugee crisis, but generally also in terms of the Sichuan earthquake, to all these issues which deal with displacement, with exile, but also with human rights violations. So just to make this link,
It's a large topic.
I know.
And to make it simple, my father, born 1910, he's an artist. He loves art. He's come from a landlord family, and he can be a very prosperous landlord son, and but he wants to go out, so he went to Paris and studied in Paris, and he could be a very good artist. But after he come back to China, that generation of people are very patriotic. They study outside because they want to go back to China. They want to solve the problem in China. And it's a very brave generation, very strong ideology. oriented people, and that's basically first generation of Chinese communist. So when he came back from Paris, immediately he been put in jail, sentenced for 6 years. That time he was only like 22 years old. So then in the jail, he cannot paint anymore, so he become a poet. You know, he's deeply influenced by French literature, and that time the jail is better condition than the jail today. You know, he still can write poetry and still can give to friends to bring out, and still underground publishers can publish his book, his poems. So by the time he was released, he already become very well known because his poems are deeply influenced by foreign literature. You know, the early poems, poetry. You know, he likes Rimbaud or Mayakovsky, or you know, all those generation of poets. He joined the revolution and stayed in Yan'an, and it became a first generation of Chinese literature people, part of the establishment of the new nation, which will become 70 years of anniversary in a few days, you know, the October 1st. So that this nation is about 70 years. And actually, my mom just received a medal that is very beautifully designed medal. It writes 70 on it. So that medal only given to the people who joined the revolution 70 years ago, which you can see this only a few people still can receive that medal. And it's very strange feeling when mom showed me the photos of this medal. I would wonder what she would think when the party presents this medal for her as honorary, highly honorary, not award, but his son is exiled. And of course, my name can never be mentioned. If you Google my father's name in Chinese site, there's no such a song as Ai Weiwei. My brother's song in there. So you can see this how society functions. My name is not in under my father's name. And even you Google my brother, still I don't have the, he doesn't have the brother as Ai Weiwei. So then at the same time, my mom would receive a very highly honored medal. So that's how China functions. And why I get so deeply involved with very essential social problems, such as we normally say fairness or justice. Because I simply cannot picture a society or a country have thousands years of history and develop so fast. Very soon will pass the United States and become almost like a #1 economy in the world. And thanks Trump, maybe stop it. But I don't know it's for real or not. But seems they have big problems now. And at the same time, the simple justice and fairness are not established. There's no independent judicial system. There's no election. Never, no Chinese ever see voting ticket. They can, be very liberal and intelligent, but if you ask them if they ever heard about a voting ticket, there will be a blank, there's no such thing. And no independent media, no freedom of speech. So how can this kind of society maintain its own competition and to become a world power that fascinates everybody, actually. I cannot have that clear answer about it.
Thank you. Maybe I want to continue a little bit more with China, but switch a little bit to your artwork about China, which takes one big gallery, one theme of the exhibition. And what we are showing there is a lot of work which is located, we could maybe say, between the destruction of culture, iconoclasm. You basically work with fragments of destroyed temples, of fragments of furniture. You're showing Buddhist monks' feet in the exhibition. So you use all these discarded, destroyed elements to create something new. So it is somehow also about this very important artistic topic about destruction and recreation and new creations. And this definitely goes specifically for that wonderful and very large scale installation through. What you also do is that you revive old craft techniques. And so I was just wondering how, you see your artwork also in terms of how that reflects your thinking about China's past and maybe China's future as well, because you create something new, which is also China and Chinese traditions.
Well, the work, I have a strong interest in the past, and I was not like so when I was in the United States, because when I come to the United States in 1981, all I want is to get rid of the past. But that time my vision is very short. I want only see past for a few decades. But by 1993, I went back to China. My brother brought me to antique market. So that time you can find a lot of antiques in the market. So antiques are fragment of the past. And you see things from 100 years ago to a few thousand years ago, they're not expensive because their value are not being really appreciated yet. And so I start to buy them and start to study them. I'm very fascinated why in 5,000 years ago they would polish a piece of jade in such a fine quality and give a clear definition. So all those and furnitures and so that all started from my curiosity about the past. So I think I'm so enriched by that, and but by really understanding it as to how to think the past can work for today. How you connect it from that. So in my society, the revolution basically wiped out the whole traditions. So what we see is really disconnected. And but the past are so fascinating, like Chinese furnitures, they're building in this kind of method and of understanding wood and the structure of a wood. So they're so beautiful. Chinese furniture doesn't have a nail. It doesn't need a nail. The wood itself can structure it. It doesn't even need a glue because the precise design and understanding of the wood, the nature of the wood, make it so profound. So the whole set of a language is not just build the furniture, but it's moral and aesthetic conditions it created. And that, in that level, I think I still don't see anything in the art can meet that kind of high standard. Even in the West art, because art is always functional. If medievals search basically for the religion, and the Renaissance is really talk about the humans' enlightenment and awareness about the human conditions. But to have a clear understanding about the humans' knowledge about the environment, nature, and to find the kind of language. Chinese tradition is superb in that. But of course, what I'm talking about is completely disappeared. You only can see through the, I think I call it evidence from the past, which is like antiquity. So I did about 6 years of a study of that, because once I moved back to China, of course, I have no job, and I'm not functioning as an artist. You know, my mom even feel I'm very strange. I always go to antique market, and you know, I don't have an American passport after 12 years. I don't know how to drive. So she often think, you know, this boy really went to United States, you know, for these 12 years. So she's shy to even introduce me to her friend. Yes, they all, yeah. And, but I really have nothing to do, you know, I can't really fit into that society. I haven't found out my language. So I bought a lot of furniture and studied it. Then later we started to work with furniture to make some changes. So the beams in here belong to a temple, an old temple, could around 300-400 years ago. Once they were being destroyed, the wood are so good, you know, the perfect type of a hardwood. They are, you know, the temple should be destroyed because they have to give the land to build the new buildings. And the antique dealer collects those wood, said, Weiwei, you must love those wood. I said, yes, I love those wood, because when I look at the quality of the wood, and even it's just fragment, you can see how they structured those buildings just like they structured the furnitures. It's so smart. It's one understanding about humans' activity. So I have those wood with me for years in warehouse. I don't know what to do with it, you know, because they're very large. I don't want to cut it. So one day I had this idea, I will structure those wood with the furniture. The furniture used to be put in those temples, so they will never meet. So I said, let them meet together. But to have that idea, we don't want to cut the table. Table is perfect table. And we don't want to cut those beams. So we have to really use the classic language to structure them together, but not to hurt either of them. It's very difficult. You can say I create a chaotic condition, but with perfect order and a precise measurement, it takes about 2 years to achieve that work. For me, it's a totally satisfaction, but for others, think maybe it's ridiculous. You know, nobody understands why this has to be done like that. I can talk for days why I have to be doing like this. But I did many works just to make myself to be satisfied. I can proudly sit on any stage to talk about it.
Thank you. I want to talk about another aspect of your work, which connects a little bit back to the human rights violations we talked about earlier, and that's the different ways in which you engage with memorials and with memory. Some of the works in the exhibition, such as Rebar and Case, which we see here, I believe also function as memorials to the victims of human rights violations, in this case of the Sichuan earthquake. Is the memorial an important art form or an important concept for you?
Well, this work, first I try to describe those work as
yes, that's a good idea.
It's a marble work carved into the shape of the iron bar, the
Rebars.
rebars, iron rebars. And the rebars come from ruins of a Sichuan earthquake, which happened 2008. Within a few minutes, about 70,000 people lost their life. Of course, they're in the poor area. Among those 70,000, 7 to 80,000 people, there's a lot of students are being killed. And the school building are built by state. It should not be collapsed. It's not possible because the hospital next to it is not collapsed. The apartment building is not collapsed, but the school building are collapsed because corruption. Because people build it, they're not properly to use those right metal, right concrete, because they just want to be to take a profit of those school buildings, and then nobody can find out till one day this earthquake. Over 5,335 students lost their life, but the government will never give out the correct number. They don't give out the names. So that time I was very active on internet. I said, that's easy. I can do investigation on that. So I organized the investigations on internet. That time, internet is still not totally being controlled by state. Still, there's a little space. Today, it's not possible. Today, you cannot dial my name on Chinese internet. But that time, it's about the time 2008, because that time I even can be involved in designing the national stadium for Olympics. So I was not being noticed as an activist. But a Sichuan earthquake could really make me totally involved because I want to search for who is dead, what's their name, what's their birthday. So after about a year of research with volunteers, I organized and to find out those over 5,000 students, their name, their birthday, their parents' name, which school they died. And every day I put those names on my blog, till my blog one day being shut off because the government cannot bear with this. This guy is crazy, so they shut off my blog, but we're still trying to every year to do some works to make this anniversary to remember it, because people easily to forget everything. 5,000 students, so what, Nobody remember in a few months later. That's a problem with our society, because we are not really care about humanity anymore. We are easily to forget. So every year I try to find a language to do it. This is one of the work related to it. I did many. So we carved those with marble. It's like in the Roman or Greek time, you think something important, you carve into marble. And we made the case very beautifully with very hard wood, with Chinese tradition again, with top craftsmen, carpenters, and ended up in the show here. What the artists can do. We can insist of facts and to make a shape or to become a part of the testimony of our time. But of course, they call me activist, or they call me maybe art is not beautiful, it's not very decorative. And but for me, it's totally satisfaction. It's a revenge. It's all about me. So.
Well, I have to come back one more time. to the idea, I think, of the memorial, because I think you explained very well. On the one hand, I think it's definitely the material. You use the marble. You also use the marble actually in that same image in the back of the room. We have these 3 tires which refugees used in order to, or while they're crossing the Mediterranean. Also that, I think, I would like to see as a memorial to the refugees. And I think these different boxes, which are also made out of very, very precious huali wood, together with these individualized marble sculptures, they become stand-ins too for the children, for the individuals. Do I see that right? So that it is really here a memorial to the children, and in the back of the room, a memorial to the refugees, to give them visibility into the future?
I think it shows not just the memory, but it shows the desperation of being an artist. You know, I'm so desperate to find something. You know, as a human, we have deep emotions. We are so intelligent. We have so much rationality and logic, and that make us function. But same times, I try to find the simplest language which everybody can recognize, you know, to understand. You know, I don't think so. How to do that? It takes a long time of involvement. Then it becomes so complicated. Then the result becomes so simple. So you have to convince yourself to do something very simple, you know. That's my strategy. So.
Do you believe that art can advance freedom? Is freedom possible at all?
I think freedom is a struggle. There's no such thing as freedom without struggle. So art certainly should be a struggle. Not all the art we see is a struggle, but a real art should be a human struggle, because it measures our mind or heart in a different level, and it reveals some kind of defines a new condition and leads us to a dangerous area. So in that sense, I think art created the freedom. You know, the freedom is not there. It has to be give a form, give a shape, give a sound or a material.
When we talked earlier, you said, and you just quoted that in the beginning of our conversation, we must recognize we are all as one. Other people's freedom is your freedom. When others are stripped of their freedom, you lose yours. Other people's suffering is also your suffering. How do you think about universalism, which that is a universalist statement, an understanding of that we are all one? How do you think about this relationship between coexistence, universalism, and difference in relation to nations, in relation to ethnicity?
Well, again, this is a very big topic. You know, I can become a professor to teach that, and I can write several books on that. So, I think let's make it simple. You know, we are human beings. We come to this world for a period of time. You know, doesn't matter. You know, you can be fortunate or unfortunate, born with money or born as poor, or you know, you can have some knowledge, or you have no knowledge about it. but we still all have a life, which is the most precious and God gave to us, or some reason we don't really understand why we still exist as a human being. This is a very proud name to have. Then the world becomes so divided. Then because culture, because hatred, because religion, because all kind of reasons, which is not very intelligent. Immediately you can sense, we all created equal, in certain sense. Of course, we don't live equally, and this is. But that is not as important as the idea we created as equal, and we share the same value, and we all have one heart, or two eyes, or some blood running in our body. We feel pain or we feel happiness. All those things are so simple. So I still cannot understand this very exclusive, this very hatred. Where does that come from? Why we wasting our life? Which is most important, not to appreciate the given condition.
And from that to a very concrete question. You're also known for your extensive use of social media and cutting-edge digital technologies, such as drones, and lately even virtual reality technology. What does the relation between virtual experiences and physical objects mean to you? Are the new technologies the better political tools?
Well, one recent months is many virtual reality development, those kind of technique. People ask me to create some art, say, Ai Weiwei, this is something new. I always tell them I'm still fascinated by reality. I'm not so interested in virtual reality. But I appreciate it, when government can easily capture our face and identify who we are and knows everything about us. We are really living in a very, very special moment. Technology are being used for beautiful things, maybe for medicine or for to make people suffering less. But at the same time, technology can be so dangerous when controlled by the superpower and by those people who the people has the power to control. And of course, there's a lot of people already sending out warnings, such as Snowden, his new book. Everybody should really read it. It's called a Permanent Record. And a young boy come from the United States with his clear vision and heart to say this knowledge belongs to the public. I have to sacrifice my life to reveal it. And Chelsea Manning has spent over 7 years in U.S. Jail, and still in trouble. And Snowden and Assange is already ruined his life because provides this platform which reveals some secret. Of course, this is maybe less than 1% of a secret of the government. Our government is so deep, and it's just sending out some warnings to the public. So, talk about virtual reality. There's a lot to be talked about because so much technology developed. Basically, it's about efficiency and about control. It can be used for production or profit gaining, and also can be used with learning and structure or social structure. So it's very hard to see how it will develop. But as an individual, we have to pay attention about what the powerful state is going to use those technology. Those always has to be pay special attention.
And certainly, I believe in many ways, your presence through social media, be it Twitter or Instagram, has also functioned really as a political tool while you were still in China. So you also use that to connect to a worldwide community, basically, of people. But I don't want to continue that, actually. I have one last question before I read the 3 questions which we collected from the audience. So that one question, though, is important to me because I really noticed that very often you use the word effort. And I never in my life really thought about the word effort. And many of your artworks, such as Forever Bicycles, which you just saw on the screen, your film, Human Flow, or other sculptural works like Souvenir of Shanghai, are monumental undertakings. They require intensive planning, preparation, and execution. In short, intensive effort. So what does effort mean to you and your artistic practice, or maybe even to you of how you act as a human being?
Well, I sense in my life, my short life, 63 years, I feel only thing I appreciate or in my memory I think is valuable is those things I made the effort, It could be a failure, but the effort itself is so important to tell me I'm involved. And it's often about how deeply you're involved. So it's my personal problem.
That was an easy question. Well, but you do. I mean, what the amazing thing is for me, when we were working together on the project, you always went all the way until it was right. So
until it's wrong. So.
Or that. we will see. But you never have quick answers, or there's never a quick design. There's always a thought process, and then to check it again, and to just be 100%, as you say, involved, and that again, that already makes it good for me,
I think there's some kind of also moral justification. You think, I often think I'm not just myself, I'm also a sample of a human being. I have to represent what I think the other people also, I appreciate if other people do that or society do that. So that is it's kind of like a responsibility.
Thank you, that was perfect, I think. Let me come to these questions from the audience. I will keep them anonymous. We had several questions, and in a more or less just democratic manner, I chose arbitrarily 3 questions. Maybe not that arbitrary. What is your thought about the state of Chinese contemporary art, or the Chinese contemporary art scene? Are you encouraged by it? Do you think there's still a ton of work that needs to be done? So just how do you think about?
I don't see this contemporary Chinese art. I see this contemporary Chinese food, and but I don't really see this contemporary Chinese art.
Okay, that was easy. To what extent, if at all, has your time in Berlin affected or influenced your art or your artistic intentions, your artistic perspective?
Berlin is a beautiful city. It has this kind of feeling between Beijing and New York. You know, it have both. You get this kind of both feeling. It's very loosened and it's quite dirty and broken, but it has some freedom and it's cheap. It's not expensive, so it gave me a freedom to stay in my studio. My studio is below the ground. You know, it's a beer cellar, so it has to be below. That time there's no refrigerator, so it's nice. In the winter it's not very cold, but in summer it's very, very, very cold, very nice. So very cool there. So I love Berlin, and that's why I have to move out, because you love someone but you don't speak the language. You know, I cannot speak Berlin German language, and also this is possible. You know, you feel after 4 or 5 years, I even cannot pronounce my home address to a taxi driver. They think I'm so stupid, you know. I just cannot pronounce the words, you know. I tried, and then my son would sit next to me, said, "Oh, Weiwei, don't bother that old guy," you know. But I really wanted to let him understand. But English, if I speak very broken English, everybody understands it. They laugh about it, but not Germans. You know. They think I should be put in the zoo. So.
I don't know about that. The last question, more a very serious question, which brings us maybe a little bit back to earlier parts of our conversation. So the question from the audience is, your artwork is a critical commentary of the Chinese government. It may be said that you are a true Chinese patriot by challenging the government to be better. Do you consider yourself a citizen of China with strong hopes for a better future for your homeland?
Well, first, that's kind of misunderstanding, because I grew up in China. I speak Chinese. I care about China. And you know, my father is the #1 patriotic poet, or patriotic human being for China. And in whole China, nobody thought about it, because his poetry study still studied by school from lower degree to universities, you know, in literature. And I think because I was born there, I do care, but I care much less now because I'm not there. So I care more about Europe and the United States than people. Some people feel, oh, maybe why don't you just talk about China, you know? But I see so much problems in the United States and in Europe, you know. I think you know, human rights or human conditions is universal. It's not just China's problem. It's again, I can write a book about it, but I think we should stop it now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today.